Imagine growing up in the green rooms and tour buses of one of country music's biggest acts. The industry isn't a mystery to you, the doors aren't closed, and then you choose to walk away from it all for 2 years, come back and launch your own career from a free block party in a back alley in Provo. That's Ben Truman, and that choice, turns out it wasn't the only one worth making. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another week of Saints in the Spotlight. Today we have on Ben Truman of the Truman Brothers. Ben, welcome. Tell us a little about yourself.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. Stoked to chat for a little bit. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. My dad was in the music business and in the country music business, even though he has quite a background across different genres of music, but he kind of settled on country as the way he was going to make his living. And so I grew up around the music business and understood the power of music from a young kid. And I don't think I was ever like, my parents didn't say, you need to do music and you need to learn how to, I mean, they did say you need to learn how to play the piano, but then I quit like most kids do. And so being a musician was never a guarantee for my future, but it was the way I was raised. It was always a guarantee that I was going to love music because there was such an appreciation for the classics and then even the current music at the time. So I had a lot of different genres and decades coming at me, and I just learned to love the power of a song. And so that was my upbringing in Nashville, and then I came to BYU out here in Provo, and kind of just by accident started making music with my brother. And that all of those years of learning to appreciate what a great song was just kind of started coming out at that time, and we started writing songs and making music, and we've been doing it ever since for the last 20-something years. So
that's a long time. Yeah. Okay, so you are Dan Truman's son. Is that correct?
Right.
Member of the Diamond Rio, Grammy-winning country group formed in Nashville. And so you grew up kind of just thrown into very, very popular country band on that time. And what did you see your dad's band go through, like on the road, in the industry, that shaped how you understood what a music career actually was?
For sure. I mean, I have, between all my siblings, I would have the most complete view of what that was. Because I can remember when I was young, that band not being popular or successful at all. And all of the many, many hours and days and weeks that they would be putting into making music, traveling, touring, trying to get a name for themselves. But they're doing it out of this junky little truck that broke down every 15 miles. And I can remember my parents or my mom waking me up and maybe another brother at 2 a.m. because their truck had arrived at the Kmart parking lot after a long run, and we needed to go pick up dad, after his run. And I can remember being half asleep in the back as we're doing, we're picking up dad. Okay. And that was just our life. It was dad on the road, then dad home, over and over and over again. And one day, like you hope it does, the right people and the right time gave them an opportunity, and they recorded their first album and put out their first song, and it was a song called Meet in the Middle, and it changed everything overnight. But like they say, right, it had been years and years working so hard. And my dad's a trained pianist. He can play classical and jazz and country. And he put in all that time and effort, thousands of hours practicing, and he still does, to this day. And I saw that work pay off when that song hit the radio and became a #1 hit in the early 90s, and it kind of changed everything for him and for our family.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people only see, like the viral moment. They see that moment where like, oh my gosh, they just blew up overnight. What they don't see is the years of just working and working until to pretty much earn that viral moment. Yeah. And so growing up, it kind of in that environment, I mean, you said that your parents never pushed you to do music, and in seeing that, like, at what point did you decide that this was something that I do want to try? Even in seeing all the struggle and that hard work and how much effort it was going to take, what was the driving factor? Why this over anything else?
For sure. Honestly, it was very organic. Like I said, I had such an appreciation for great songs. My dad, when he was trying to decide growing up what the next songs would be going on their album, he'd listen to hundreds of and thousands of songs that were pitched to him from other artists. So I remember listening to in his car over and over again. I don't like that one. I like that one. Oh yeah. well, you guys could do this one with that and it would make it like this. And you just, from a young age, I just really started thinking about songs and what makes them work. But that was always just as a function of my dad's life. Like I said, when I got to BYU and we started making music with my bro, and that was all about, honestly, hey, we're doing a campfire up in the mountains, up in the canyon. There's gonna be some girls there. Okay, I'll bring my guitar. I'll sing a couple songs, like just trying to just be a guy living his life. And it turned into something more and more as we started writing songs and people go, I really like that. Do you have that recorded? And I'm like, no, maybe we should do that. And it just snowballed and it turned into a thing where we had a little bit of a following out here in Provo. And then it just kept growing and we started touring more nationwide. But it honestly just started with a love of making music. And my brother and I had a similar background and a shared understanding of what we enjoyed about music. And so it was just really natural to write songs and to then find out that one person cared about that song and thought it was interesting or cool was like, well, that's awesome, and maybe we should share it with some more people and maybe we should write more songs. And it really just came from a place of honest, sincere creativity that once we realized this is something that might lift other people as well, was extremely motivating, right? And we just kept on working and kept on seeking opportunities. And that's still what we're doing to this day.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you guys have been doing pretty cool. I know you guys just came to. You guys did that. Was it the thank you tour? Is that what you guys called it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, we put out a Christmas album, and they wanted to release the Christmas album. Our record label wanted to release the Christmas album in October because you just want to have enough runway for your album to make the
Mhm.
rounds. And we were like, October? That seems so early for a Christmas album. And we said, well, why don't we put a Thanksgiving song on this album as well? That can kind of be the first single. And that ended up being one of the more known songs from the album. It's called Thank You. And
Hmm.
so we decided to build a whole tour around that and do it in November and kind of create kind of a pre-Christmas family experience for those who want to start kicking off the holidays even sooner than December. And that was a great time.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I saw you guys had gone up to made a stop in Rexburg, and I had just moved from there, and so I was like, "Dang it!"
Oh,
So
no way.
I wanted to go see you guys because I had seen all the
Right
stuff
on.
that was going around, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, who are these Truman guys?" Seem like they're pretty cool. And I mean, and I also your music
That's
is so
good. I guess
fun.
the advertising to some degree.
Yeah, it's working, and your music is really really cool too. Like, what would you say? Like, how do you describe what your music is? Like, what genre?
Great question. And sometimes I get on a soapbox more than I should. The short answer is it's Christian, but
Mhm.
that's such an interesting way of looking at it because genre is usually describing the type of music.
Yeah,
And for some reason, when you start singing about things of faith, they kind of just put it in Christian, even though musically speaking, it maybe doesn't sound like your typical praise and
yeah,
worship music.
yeah,
And while we have nothing against praise and worship music, that's never been our style. We wanted to make music that sounded like just contemporary pop, rock, pop, soul, whatever music, but just had messages of faith in it, right? So when we sit down to write a song, we're not trying to think about what works for Christians from a music standpoint. We're thinking, what do we like right now, or what have we been inspired by, and let that kind of inform our efforts a little bit, And we grew up listening to Stevie Wonder and a bunch of '70s stuff that my dad was always playing. Of course, I grew up in the '90s, so I'm also listening to alternative rock music like Weezer and whatever else. And then we're living in Nashville, surrounded by country, right? So we've never been a respecter of genres. That's just not like
mhm,
how we think and operate. We need to sometimes boil it down to that kind of context sometimes for people because it just needs to be simple. But all that to say, I think long answer being made short now is that we just make a sort of pop rock Christian music that we don't necessarily have any boundaries for. We'll extend in different directions if we feel like it, but it's always going to be faith-based messaging about our experience as we've tried to wrestle with mortal life and understand what it's all about. And it's definitely inspired by our LDS faith. And I don't think we try to hide that. We're not necessarily running around singing Book of Mormon songs, but we definitely try to let our understanding of the gospel of Jesus Christ seep through the lyrics in a way that LDS people would definitely enjoy, but also maybe it would even inform and lift people of other Christian faiths because it's not exclusionary, it's inclusionary, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah, I love that. And in choosing to go like that route with your music and being, more you want to go the more Christian route. When you and your brother first started out, was there a deliberate conversation around, what kind of music are we going to want to make? How do we basically where do we want to take this? What direction do we want to go there?
Yeah, great question. I mean, when we first started, we weren't doing faith-based stuff. We were just
Mhm.
writing about our life experience, which at the time was largely, oh, why did this girl break up with me? Why am I single on a Friday night? Just the stuff that people experience and go through. And that was a very sincere and true expression of what we were going through at the time. And our first couple albums were that kind of music. And it's funny because you might say, well, then they changed to Christian. But like, again, I don't see it like that. I think we just started writing a little bit more, what's the right word? Mature, seasoned life, songs about faith and our understanding as we got older, as we turned into family men,
Mhm.
which was a very deliberate decision, right? Are we going to be the type of people who chase fame and success and whatever else at the expense of hurting the possibility for happy family life? And that's always been an easy answer for us, that no, we weren't going to do that. And so we've learned how to position what we're doing, what we're singing about, how we're sharing it in a way that works well for being good husbands and good fathers for our kids. And that's been a long, interesting dance trying to figure that out, but that's always been the goal and the focus.
Yeah. I think that's something I look at a lot of artists in a similar vein where, it's really it's hot and fun when you're younger and then suddenly family comes along and things tend to get a little more complicated. And so what were some of the things that you guys did when you started becoming family men? You started having kids, you got married, you had kids, you started having other responsibilities outside of just being able to have fun and make music. What kind of mindset do you have to have? One, in order to determine how you're going to handle it, and what do you think is the right way to do that?
Yeah, we often say this line, because we always talk about, well, we're trying to live my dream. My dream. I want to go for my dream. And we early on said this, and so we always go back to it. The dream, truly, the dream. Look, I'm in my office right here. This is perfect. Check this out. Hold up. Speaking of Stevie Wonder, I got this hanging above my. So I got a bunch of music stuff in here and
Mhm,
some cool emblems of our experience. But above my desk, kind of the foremost thing I look at is this quote from a Stevie Wonder song. It's my favorite song ever. And I pulled out this line. It says, "For did my dreams come true when I looked at you?" Right? I don't know if that's backwards or not, but and then right under that is a picture of the fam. Right? The dream for us has always been this. It just truly is. So, like, I want to live my dream. You hear people talk like this, and they say, "Well, I can't get married. I can't have kids. It's going to interfere with my dream." And that's, I guess, true for them because their dream is X, Y, or Z. But for us, the dream is to have this amazing life experience with people that we love so deeply, and that who we sacrifice for, and everything around that contributes to and builds that dream for us. And that's just how we've always seen it. And so it's no, accident that I've hung this right here, because it's a daily reminder that this is who I'm working for. This is who it's all about.
mhm,
And the truth is, we're not Justin Bieber, right? That's okay. But we're having these incredible experiences making music, sharing music that are absolutely in support of the original dream, and have built it and maximized it in this amazing way. So now my son comes in and he makes music with me, and we talk about what he loves about songs, and now he's singing and he's doing stuff. Again, it was never about raising him up to be the most talented guy in the room, which I do think a lot of people think that way. We need to practice the piano for this, and this. For us, it's just been organically about sharing and making music that just makes you feel good. It just makes you have a better experience on a daily basis to be able to sit down and play guitar or piano and sing a song. If there was no commercial success attached to that, that's great. That's fine. we're so grateful that we're being able to make music that people care about and share. And we hope that the songs we've made have enhanced other people's core dreams. And that is to hopefully have great relationships and become closer to God. I would say 99% of our songs are about those two things. And so we're just so grateful that we've found this sweet spot and that it exists, but we kind of believe it really does exist.
Hmm. Yeah. Are you guys doing music full time, or do you also have like a, I guess what people call a day job?
Sorry, it got cut off for a second, but
Ah.
you asked, are we doing music full time?
Yeah.
Yes. The short answer is yes. Music is so invasive in your life because it's so much work. But we also do what we need to in the fringes to my brother, for example, he has cover bands. So this is, yeah, he's
Mm,
music full time for sure because he does a bunch of party bands and stuff. He gets hired by corporations and cities and weddings, stuff like that. And that's kind of his day job. Uh,
yeah.
so that,
That's
and that,
interesting because
he has the skills and the ability to do that.
yeah, that's interesting because like just when I had Brandon Pack on here, he said
Oh
like
yeah.
the way to make money as a musician is go join a cover band. That's all you need. If your only goal is like to be profitable, just go join a cover band. So it's interesting to see that in
Yeah,
I guess in
and they
practice right
we
now.
we we recently worked with Brandon, and they talked shop about their cover bands for a while. I teach songwriting at BYU, which I find
That's
extremely
sweet.
fulfilling because I get to kind of share some of these insights that I've developed over the last 20 years and share them with people who have the same kind of passions and excitement for making music. And it's great because I get to get up on my soapbox all the time in there, and no one can stop me.
That's awesome. I love that.
We have a good time. It's been a really, really great thing. So yeah, we do what we need to make it happen. Chad and I, right now, we're working on something we've never done, and we're really excited about a musical, which
No way.
has some serious. I'm Chad. This was Chad's original vision, and he's brought me on, and so I'm coming from having seen what he was working on to begin with. This thing has some serious potential. It's pretty cool, and I can't tell you much about it, but just know it's coming.
That's cool. That's really cool to know. That's awesome. Man,
Yeah.
yeah. So I want to backtrack just a little bit with you're a songwriting professor at BYU. You talk about your growing up listening to your dad, like always listening to these songs that people would send him. In all those years of listening to other artists' songs, of writing your own music, and now teaching, what is the secret to a good song? What just makes a song catchy? What makes it stick?
There's several answers to your question. The first one that I probably have to say is nobody really knows, right? If there was a perfect formula, we would all just wear it out to death. And that is the thing. If there ever seems like there is a formula, it does get worn out to death. And
Mm,
then things have to change. So someone else comes and creatively makes a new way or a new angle at it. And so it's a living organic thing, what works in music. Uh, but I'll give you a couple base principles. You want to be able to reach people, right? And so
mhm,
you have to do something that relates to them. And there's really great ways to do that because sometimes people will go, well, if I don't want to be too specific about what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing, because then they won't be able to relate to it. So I'll write more generally. That doesn't work
mm,
that well. We've found that the more detail and the more imagery that's real and rich about your own experience or about some experience that you're writing about of somebody else's, that actually ends up hitting people's hearts even more because they feel the realness, they feel the tangible, and they're able to then twist it for their own purposes, what's going through their own life. And so we spent a lot of time talking about how do we make sure that this sounds believable and real. That's always our biggest goal sitting down is like, yes, we want to have a big soaring chorus and a great payoff lyrically with the end of with that title. And we want to have a great groove or we want to have a new interesting melody. But all of it is contributing to the idea that how do we remain believable? How do we
mm,
remain something that is sincere enough to reach somebody else's heart or mind? And we talk about that in our songwriting class. We say you can learn how to play an instrument, you can learn to have the best vocabulary and have all the right words to say. You can learn how to use a computer for producing and building beats. You can do all of these things, but all of those at the end of the day are just tools for capturing your inspiration. And so finding that conduit for inspiration, which is also a whole other conversation and very hard to do, but at least being ready to receive it when it comes so that you can attack and put something out into the world that can be special is what you're looking for. You're just waiting for magic to happen and being ready for it, when the time comes.
Hmm. I've often heard it say like, I just went and watched the Michael Jackson movie, and he has such an interesting quote there where he talks about how like he's trying to receive inspiration for the album that he's writing, and he's like, I need to be ready to receive it because if God is wants me to give you something and I'm not ready for it, then He'll give it to Prince. And I think that's a very, very accurate assumption. Like you need, and when it comes to music, when it comes to any sort of storytelling, you have to be open to like any sort of flash of inspiration. And yeah, so thanks for sharing that with that one. So you guys been doing this for a pretty long time now,
Hmm.
and you're able to tour, you're able to do a lot of these things. Your brother's doing it full time. One thing that I see a lot of is, and a lot of people notice this as well. It's like there are some people that are just so incredibly gifted, like every talent in the world, yet they don't really go anywhere with it, either by choice or just by not knowing. But you see it a lot too with you look at the auditions on like The Voice or American Idol, America's Got Talent, where you have these people crazy audition, it goes viral, they go big, and you never hear from them again. And I think a big part of that is, a system. There's some kind of, because there's more to music, especially at the career wise, than just writing and singing. And so, what were some of the things early on that you guys had to figure out in order to understand that if we want to make this work, it's going to take more than our skills alone?
Yeah. I might have you ask me that one more time just because it cut out,
Yeah.
but I want to be precise. Say it one more time for me.
Yeah. I guess in short, pretty much you have a lot of people who are, they they have a ton of talent, they have a ton of ability, just phenomenal artists, phenomenal musicians, but they don't go anywhere with it. Either sometimes by choice, but other times it's just by wishing and hoping that someone will see them. And you guys been doing this for a while. So in those early days, especially growing up around it, what do people not realize about what it takes to be like an artist?
Right. Yes, it's such a great question. I mean, you're always going to be relying on some measure of luck, right? Just because you can't control every element of this world. And that
Mhm,
applies to everything we do, right? It's not just making music. But I will say there's over the last 20 years, and honestly, like since, and I hate talking like the old man on the block, but like since social media, the ability to get out there quickly and even like you said, have a viral video.
mhm,
Now, these things didn't exist, right? So now you can go straight to the market with your look or with your product, and there's some things about that are very cool, very special. It's great that opportunity has been given to all, but it's created a scenario where you have people who too prematurely get out in front of others in a mass way and don't necessarily have the goods to back it up long term.
mhm,
And so I've actually heard stories of for a while there, if you were big on TikTok, the record labels, they get lazy, right? And they don't want to
mhm,
develop acts. They see a TikTok artist that has millions of followers and they go, hey, let's sign this person and get them going. And that will work for a moment because they have a big following. But I've been hearing from here and there that they get a little like, uh-oh, once they realize the person, the artist doesn't necessarily have a lot of experience making music or making it over and over again or
mhm,
learning how to follow up the big great song with another one and how relentless it can be to have to keep going and going. And they're going, oh dang it, like some of these folks just aren't seasoned enough. And you know some of them are too. I'm not saying it's like that for everybody, but the
yeah,
point is, I feel like the order of operations has got a little flipped on its head. Where before you really had to go prove yourself. I mean, think about the Beatles, right? The story that many
mhm,
know, where they're in where were they? Hamburg, Germany. I can't remember where it
mhm,
was. They were in the clubs and bars for hours every night, just playing cover songs and maybe throwing a couple of their own songs in there, but they were doing it for so long, so many hours. And before everyone even knew who they were, right? And so there's this thing where you gotta get your skill set, you gotta get your tool belt kind of filled up with all the right tools before you really start going for it. Now there's gonna be exceptions to that, and that's fine. But I think the biggest principle of all is that if to flip the order of operations, like I was saying, kind of can mess with your brain too, because way too early you start caring about what the audience thinks,
Mm.
and you never haven't had a chance to go through a process of what you are or what you love or what you're wanting to give the world. You're just like, whatever gets the clicks, whatever gets the views, that's what we're here for. And there's just way too many people thinking like that, and it's really hurting the underlying, art, the creations that we're providing to the world. And no one is, not susceptible to this. We have to remind ourselves all the time, don't go chasing the clicks. Don't go chasing what works necessarily. Create what's real for you, because that's how you know you'll always be in the right place. And
Mm.
then, sure, go work hard to get it out there and have great marketing strategies and do all you got to do. But start with the goods. And so I would say that's the answer to your question, is just making sure you keep the main thing, doing the right
Mm.
order of this stuff so that you don't lose yourself in the process.
Yeah. In a marketing setting, oftentimes the artists who are able to make it big, especially like the biggest ones, they have a whole team of people behind them promoting their music, helping them promote their shows. Like there's so much going on there. For newer artists, though, you don't really have access to a whole lot of those things. But how much do you think it pays as like an early musician to understand the basics of business?
It's crucial. I mean, honestly, until you get signed to a record deal, you are a record label on your own, right? So you got to write the songs, you got to record the songs, you've got to build your artwork, you got to put your social media plans together, you've got to do all of this stuff, and it never ends. It's nonstop. But it's crucial that you know your way around this business. The more you know how to do, the less you have to rely on others. Now, the right partner comes along, and it's great to have that synergy and stuff. But you're definitely just going to have to be realistic. One of the chapters we teach in our songwriting class from this textbooks is developing realistic expectations. You just got to know really what it is. And so I hope that answered your question. To kind of cut out there for a
Yeah.
second, but yeah.
Oh yeah, like I often something that I've been developing in my own mindset the last few years is this idea that if you want to be an independent artist, you have to pretty much treat yourself like an entrepreneur because that's what you are.
Hmm.
It is
Yeah.
a full-on business that you're making. It's a media business, it's a music business. You're the founder, you're the CEO, you're the marketer, you're the social media manager, but you're also the songwriter and the art. Like there's so many components there
Yeah.
that it can get daunting. Yeah. Uh,
I
let's
I think if
go ahead.
people truly appreciated all the skill sets that music folks have to develop to do this stuff, they would have a lot more kind of respect for their ability to jump into other places of work, because it's relationships, it's marketing, it's product development, it's all of these things. And
Mhm.
and sometimes it gets boiled down to they like to sing. It's like, no, it's a lot of work. It is a business. You're absolutely more.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to backtrack a little bit to again some of your earlier days because there's some cool stuff that you guys were able to do early on at BYU. I know that you were back to back BYU Battle of the Bands champs, which opened the door to some other opportunities, particularly with groups like Imagine Dragons and Kelly Clarkson. So, just talking about
Yeah.
some of those opportunities, like how did you guys get there? How did you guys end up being able to be on stage with those kind of people?
Yeah, it's funny. We like to joke. This is a joke that we won the Battle of the Bands 2 years in a row, which was just so much fun. Just in college, winning the Battle of the Bands is just honestly, we could have peaked right there. We'd have been all right with that, but we didn't. We decided not to go. We decided not to participate in the Battle of the Bands the third year, and that year, this new band ended up winning, called Imagine Dragons. And so we like to say that we opted out and we let Imagine Dragons win it that year, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But yeah, so we were contemporaries with those guys and a lot of bands at the time around. I mean, Provo's always had such a great scene for stuff coming out. And there were, Neon Trees were kind of around when we were there, college wise. And yeah, so you just start getting out there and the opportunity starts showing up. And so we got a chance to later to do a big show at BU, which included Kelly Clarkson and Imagine Dragons. And we've, it's actually really funny. It took years before we ever even did a show with our old man's band, Diamond Rio, because we never wanted to ask him and he never wanted to ask his bandmates to be like, hey, can my sons open up? So the first time that we opened up for Diamond Rio was purely because an agent wanted us to be on this show and put it together. And I called up my dad. I'm like, dude, we're opening for you. He's like, what? So that was pretty fun. And yeah, over the years, we've had a chance to do some really cool stuff. And we haven't even mentioned the fact that this band right here is a band that my brother and I have also been a part of called the Nashville Tribute Band. And that's a group that, before we even started making music that was faith-based, these guys were already doing it out of Nashville. And these are a lot of friends. And even my dad is in this group. And so they started this years ago.
Wait,
and
is your dad
decided
still in
to
the
make
group?
music that would be... Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So
No
this is like
way.
his
That's so
passion
cool.
project on the side of his.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
he doesn't
Yeah.
get to come to all the shows because he's so busy with Diamond Rio still after all these years.
Yeah.
That's half the reason that my brother and I are now, when we've been in the band now for 12 years. But we had to start filling in for my dad because he was on the road with Diamond Rio all the time. And so now we've been a part of this group for a long time and gotten to write a lot of songs for these amazing projects. And what we did with these guys kind of informed and kind of catapulted what my brother and I started doing as well, kind of more of a faith-based thing. And great group of guys and a great example of how to keep the main thing. And grateful for those dudes and grateful for the songs we've been able to make over the years.
I think it's really interesting that both you and your dad had kind of this mutual understanding that he didn't want to try to just give you opportunities that you didn't earn, which I think is great. And then you also felt like, I don't want to just be this Nepo baby and just ride off the coattails of my dad's fame, until you were found by an agent that just happened to pair you guys together. So was it ever like tempting to try to either use your dad's fame, use the Diamond Rio fame to help launch your own stuff?
That's such a great question. It's actually funny. I like to joke that when I did not take advantage at, setting the music career stuff apart, just as like being like close to a successful musician, I did not do a good job of taking advantage of that at all when I was a kid, because it was so like routine for me. Like, oh yeah, dad goes on the road and he comes home. It didn't seem necessarily special. It wasn't until I got older that I realized like, oh, like this is really cool. What's going on? This is not everybody's experience. And I always joked, like my dad, their band used to do like charity golf tournaments. That was like their big charity that they would do each year. And they do a golf tournament and they'd have all kinds of other huge country acts or even like Peyton Manning or others that were like more Tennessee based. They would come and be part of this charity tournament. My dad didn't even have me come. Like I never even went to any of these things. And I'm like, wait, why wasn't I hanging out with Peyton Manning, dude? What was I doing? I was like at home playing video games. And so I just was not very good at realizing even how to take advantage of my dad's access. Now, with that said, just having somebody who knows the business and knows certain realities about how it works has absolutely been beneficial. And that's true for anybody, right? If you're a dentist and your son's trying to be a dentist, you're going to be able to like help him out and figure it out. He's a lot less guesswork,
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for the times that dad has been like, hey, you might want to like call this guy or that guy. But that doesn't mean anything's going to happen. It just means you waste a lot less time wondering what you're supposed to be doing, if that makes sense. And so I'll definitely acknowledge that. And I'm grateful for, the chances we've had to do what we do. And hopefully we've done our part in running with those opportunities and building something on top.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I like that answer. So I saw this thing with like, you guys toured it's the NACA circuit, college circuit around town. And what did it actually feel like to basically kind of grind out that circuit going from college to college, night after night, and then maybe for audiences who didn't really come to see you? Like, what's that experience like?
That was that was absolutely like the grinding it out phase for us. You know, we hopped in my Hyundai Sonata. We figured out a way to put all of our musical equipment in the trunk of that car. Shout out to the Sonata; it's a great car. And we had an agent out of Nashville that booked strictly colleges, and so
Mm,
we'd get they would this is great, you know, they would just fill up this roster of dates, and we would be able to say, all right, you know, but it wasn't big money. It was enough to barely make it work. This was pre being married for both of us, and so we were able to slum it a little bit more. But it was such valuable experience because you went to a lot of different places and you saw a lot of different faces, right? And
mhm,
some places we showed up were like ready to rock, and there was a big party and it was a fun show. And other places we showed up and there was like maybe 7 people there who even cared that we were in the building. And you just learn to deal with different, you know, energies and different circumstances, and all the while still show up and deliver the way you're supposed to, you know. And
mm,
and some of our favorite experiences were with a small group of people. And so, you know, and then obviously we've had shows now where we've done songs for 13,000 people, but the shows for 13 people in some cases have been just as memorable.
mm.
And, you know, there's a picture if I could pull it off. Check this out. Here, I'm gonna grab this. This was a college show back in the day. We showed up and they had barely any sound equipment. And we said, okay, they said, here's your mic. And we said, well, I don't know if you can see this. They said, here's your mic. And we said, well, Chad
My gosh.
plays the piano, and while he sings, he can't just hold the mic. And they said, well, we don't have any mic stands. And we're like, we have to have a mic stand. And we went into a rummage into some old custodial closet. That's a vacuum that's probably 70 years old. I don't know. It was in the corner. We pulled that vacuum out. We put the mic in the top of the vacuum and then taped it to his piano. And that's how we got through the show. And
That's a golden relic right there. That's
I
awesome.
love that story because, again, you just don't know what you're going to get. You're going to have more moments that feel glorious and so fun making music. And then you're going to have stuff like this where you just got to figure out even how to get through the moment. And so we've been there, and those college shows definitely helped us kind of learn how to deal with all kind of adversity and getting lost in the backwoods of West Virginia, looking for this small college. You know, we've truly seen so many different things, and it really it kind of formed the basis of our resilience for our duo, and we lean on that, I think, all the time.
Mm, yeah. I think it's hilarious now the amount of times I've heard like artists early days and some of these origin stories that are like that where, you know, the mic on a vacuum. Like I know like Casey Elliott, I had him on from Gentry, and he told me about like their first show as Gentry, and it's like at this outdoor amphitheater where they just had a piano. There's no mics set up. It was windy as crap. Everything's just blowing around, and they're just like they had like 3 songs. That was just the most
Yeah,
random set ever. It's like this is how we began.
yeah,
We didn't know what we were
and you
doing.
know
We
what?
just
And those
started.
experiences can happen at any time. You know,
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the most important thing that a lot of people tend to the reason why so many people are afraid, I guess, and they never quite reach that spot they want to be is because they're just afraid to start because they don't know all of the
Mhm.
variables. They don't know what's going to go wrong. And I think the most important thing is just being able to be like, you know what? Let's just do it and then play as we go. Just play it by ear, see what happens, and then roll with the punches. And that's what you have to do. I think that's a great example of that is how are we going to make this? It's not a matter of like, this isn't going to work. It's how do we make this work? And
Right.
sometimes it's taping a mic to a old vacuum and life works out.
Totally, totally. And honestly, like I get a lot of the students in my songwriting class saying, "Look, well, how do you do this? How do you make music? What do you do?" And I go, "I don't even know." Right? You just start. You just go for it. And you know, at a minimum, work on your craft and start sharing it with people however you can. And then chase the opportunities that come, whatever they are. Don't be too too big for a small opportunity, or don't be too scared for what you think is too big of an opportunity. You just got to go for it and learn from the mistakes. And you know, it's too bad that if we feel like we live in a world where anything we do can be caught on camera and expose, our lack of talent or our mistakes or whatever it is, because it shouldn't be that way. And honestly, it isn't that way. We feel like that is the case, but there's so much coming into in our brains right now that people
Mhm.
forget something as soon as they see it. Don't worry about making a mistake. I always talk about how Adele at the Grammys one year she had like something happened with her ears, and so like
Mm.
her inner headphones, and
Yeah.
she couldn't hear herself well, and she just didn't perform well at all at that Grammy, and it was like kind of a big deal. Made all the rounds like, why does she sound so bad? What happened? And it was just a technical issue. It happens to everybody. The following year, she's had her big like moment to come back to sing at the Grammys again, and hopefully kind of like make up for that previous year. And it started poorly. The song started and something happened again. I don't know if she was nervous or whatever. And she's singing her song. She goes, stop the song. And in the middle of her performance at the Grammy, she goes, stop the song. I got to start over. I have to get this right for you guys. So just bear with me. And that right there and then was a perfect example of someone who's seasoned enough to even know I can stop. I can just say, sorry, I'm going to start over. That wasn't going well. You might think that's unprofessional, or you might just be endeared to somebody who's just trying to deliver the best performance they can. And for her, it worked like a charm. And I don't know, it's just a great example of like, it's always going to be something that can go wrong. And you just got to learn how to live with it and handle the moments that come to you. And again, keep the main thing the main thing. We're just trying to share music so we can lift other people. And if that was her goal, in order to start over and get back into the right headspace to deliver that song, then kudos to her.
Mm. Yeah. Speaking of, taking a hold of opportunities, about 7 years ago, I think you guys got offered to be, I guess you guys were able to sign with Shadow Mountain. And a
Yeah,
lot of artists, they talk about like, oh, just stay independent, or, there's a whole debate around either staying independent or going with a record label. There's a lot of people debate on, do we choose to stay independent or do we sign with a label? So why do you guys choose to sign with them over staying versus staying independent? Walk me through your thought process there.
totally. For us, I think you always respond well to someone believing in you,
Mm.
and whether it's the right decision to work with somebody is a different thing. But we appreciated that the folks at Shadow Mountain Records had reached out to us to say, hey, we see you guys doing your thing, and we'd love to come in and complement that and enhance that the way we can. And we've built our situation enough to, we've structured it in a way where we don't have to say yes to something just because it's going to pay more,
Mhm.
right? Or, I mean, that's not a financial structure, that's an emotional structure, right? We don't chase the situations that are going to be the best paying necessarily. We just want to do what's right for the music and for our families, right? So that the balance of those two things, and working with Shadow Mountain Records was just a great uh, just an opportunity for us to kind of work with a team of people who have the same vision, right? They're the same type of people. They want to put out music and lift people up. They're family people themselves, and they I think they knew what we were about. We knew what they were about, and so in that case, it made a lot of sense for us to go with them. I know that there's a lot of success that can be had making music independently, and I'm sure, and we've done that ourselves, and we probably will do it again one day, But it's always a gratifying thing to find people who are of the same mindset as you and want to work hand in hand with you. And that's been our experience with those guys.
Mm. Awesome. I want to pivot now to dive a little bit more into your guys's what your music is really about, and some of the accolades and awards that you guys have won as well. I know that you have one big song, "Quiet Revolution," which came in at, like, was it number 10 on the iTunes Christian chart? What was that moment like when you guys saw that climbing up the records, being like, "Holy crap, this is, like, gaining traction?"
It was awesome. It was awesome because obviously you wanna have those moments where you said, hey, look what we've done, But it was almost immediately like, wait, how is this happening? This means there's people out there who care, you know? And that is the end all amazing feeling, right? And to me, I do love the little headlines, top 10 this, or we won this award for that. It,
Mhm.
it, it does mean a lot. My favorite thing by far, though, is the messages you get from people. This song got me through a really tough time in my life and you read what the tough time was, and you're going, "Oh my gosh, I
Mm,
can't believe our song could help someone going through that," you know? And I, I have a little folder where I collect those messages and those emails and stuff because they mean the world. They are above all the thing that if I'm ever wondering, is it worth doing this? This is a lot of
mm,
work. This is a lot of effort. Those are the ones I go back to because you only get so much time on this planet, and to do something that you know with evidence is lifting other people. It's just not something you'll regret, spending your
mm,
time on. And so it is fun. It is really fun. I can remember years ago, I was 6 years old when we found out my dad's group went number one with that new song, Meet in the Middle. That video is unbelievable. We're in this tiny little apartment, we barely could afford to even rent. And we get the call, Meet in the Middle went number one. What? These are special things because they mean all the effort that you've put in and all the heart that you've kind of dropped into the music meant something to somebody else. And truly, again, just going back to it, that's what it's all about. Of course, it was great that meant that now they got to go on tour and they got to make more money and they got to do all that. But that's just not why, in my opinion, you should start making music, to make millions. That's a bad business to get into if your hope is to make millions. But if
mhm.
your hope is to reach some people, what a great thing.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard it said with musicians, and I listen to a lot of business podcasts too, and all of them say like, if you're in it for the money, then you're in the wrong profession because these kind of things are
It's a tough one. It's
about
a tough
changing the
one.
world
It's
in a
not
way.
designed well, and just changing one heart even, right?
Mhm,
Even I like to tell my songwriting students, if you write something from your own personal experience that only just like is something that your parents love because it talked about some experience that you shared or some background that was about you guys, that's amazing. That's an amazing thing. It's, we're told, probably we should spend more time writing in our journals, right? I just think
mhm,
about music as just this really great way of journaling and sharing.
hmm,
And so it's, again, if you start with just that, and the idea that I'm going to lift just a couple hearts, then it's like the scripture says, if you bring one unto me, great. Many more, awesome too, but we'll take the one.
yeah. That's a great way to look at that. That is a fantastic way to look at that. Kind of in that honestly, in that same line, you guys have one incredible song called "Bruised," which is about a
Mm.
similar situation, about the woman who reached out to touch the Savior's robe. In writing that song, like, it's become one of your most celebrated ones, but in writing that, what was when you guys fir what was when you first had that idea, what was I guess, what came to you? Like, what was, like, the decision, like, "Hey, we
Yeah,
should do this."
sometimes the same way that music helps unlock the listener's ear to receive the message of the lyric, sometimes the music, when we're messing around writing a song, the music unlocks the message that we want to share, right? So my brother was playing that piano, and and it was just like, oh man, and we just started thinking about what story or what feeling would be worthy of this music.
Mm,
And without saying it in this song directly at all, I always think about the woman who so desperately wanted to reach out and touch Jesus so that she could be healed. That is who I always thought about when we were writing the lyric to that song. But of course, we just know that everyone, we all go through really tough things sometimes that leave deep scars. And we just wanted to write a song that wasn't necessarily about overcoming those things. It was just about the hope that we could one day. And that's what Bruise is all about. And it's a song that means a lot. It's one of our more heavy ones, but one that definitely
mm.
has resonated with people. And I don't know when this podcast will come out, but we got some exciting news. We ended up doing a deluxe version of that album,
No
Face the
way.
Fire. And on that deluxe album, we're going to do a version of Bruised with a female vocalist because I've always wanted to explore that side of the song too. It always kind of had a very feminine kind of
Yeah.
possible energy for it. And so we partnered with a girl named Ashley Hess, who's in a group called The
Yeah.
King Will Come. And she has a song called Yet that's beautiful and amazing. And she was kind enough to come sing the song with us, and she put her heart into it. And so that's coming too. A Bruised featuring Ashley Hess.
No, wait, when's that
It
coming
should be
out?
here this weekend, actually.
This
So
weekend.
this
That's
podcast,
wow. I guess that'll be
yeah,
it'll be auto released by the time this one comes out, but that's sweet.
go check it out.
Yeah, we'll link to it for sure. That's awesome. One of the things that I feel like it's really exciting about this new era of Christian music I feel like we're in is I feel like a lot of the older stuff that my parents grew up on felt a little heavy-handed. It was almost like it was too much of a sermon in music. And when you write faith-based music, that is a tricky
Right.
balance of like, how do we make this authentic? How do we make this, have the right message without it feeling like we're preaching? And so what are the things that you guys do to try to, I guess, retain the authenticity without making it feel like you're just preaching to people?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I care about a lot because just for my own tastes, I didn't want to ever be too on the nose, too cheesy, too preachy. I just wanted it to feel like people, the ability for people to step into other people's shoes, or for them to feel what they're needing to feel, to have some kind of momentum spiritually. And so we've always come at it from that angle. You know, if the truth is, I don't listen to a ton of Christian music. I definitely listen to some. I like a group called For King and Country. I think they're really cool.
Mm,
I think they're similar to us in terms of they're just writing songs, and they're not necessarily writing like worship songs or like,
yeah.
and I just think I like their style. I like to think that, if you look at a lot of the lyrics from The Killers, for example, Brandon
Hmm.
Flowers, right? He's absolutely writing from a background of faith in many cases, right? You can see him trying to work things out in his head based off the things that he once believed or still believes, and he's trying to make sense of it in terms of the immortal experience that he's having in the moment. That to me is as Christian or as faith-based as anything else, because it's real and it's based off his experiences as he's grappled with faith. And you can read that in between the lines in his songs a lot. And so I love that as an example of what we hope to do as any other kind of Christian music, is just to kind of put what we're experiencing into lyrics that really get the dirt underneath the fingernails of our mortal experience here. And so that's kind of what we try to do.
Mm. I like that phrase, dirt underneath the fingernails. I feel like that's really what life is. It's not polished. It's not clean. There is no, oftentimes it doesn't really feel like there's really no black or white in the world today. Like everything's very muddled and gray. And
For
so
sure.
I think what you guys are doing is very important with having music that can be listened to as music without it feeling like a sermon, but it's also like deeply personal and spiritual. Like it can be a spiritual experience when it comes to music, and I think that's what it's meant for.
Absolutely.
In choosing to go like the religious route and choosing to go with more Christian music, that obviously comes from the convictions that you have as a Christian and the things that you believe in. And there are some people who choose, they decide not to go that route. They don't either they don't flaunt it as much, or they just make music to make music, and they just do what they want. So with your choosing to go the Christian route, talk to me a little bit about your own, I guess, conversion story and why you feel it's so important to be able to create Christian music versus going mainstream and potentially forsaking a broader audience, more ability to, get on shows, get in front of people for the mission that you're pursuing.
Totally. And I'll say, we've made music that wasn't Christian before, and we might make it again. I mean, we reserve the right to do whatever feels right for us. But for the last, I guess, man, between Nashville Tribute Band and then what we've been doing with Truman Brothers the last few years, it's been about 12 years of really focusing on faith. And I just think we're in a really interesting time, and faith is one of the most dissected or ignored or persecuted or misunderstood parts of our lives socially, collectively, right now than anything. It is there's a lot of different ways people weaponize faith or mock faith. whatever it might be. And we just felt like it was important. We just believe so wholly in, in the gospel and in the way that we understand it and the way that we see it, we believe is this amazingly beautiful thing that truly is for the benefit of all. And sometimes that benefit and that the universal aspect of faith and what it can do for people seems to be lost. And it just felt like we had a small voice that we could contribute to the conversation that redirected the narrative in some cases to have faith and Jesus and all of the things that come with it be things that are for people's good. It's a net positive for you in your life. It's not a drain on your life. It's not something that tells you what to do, and puts restrictions on you. It is something that enhances your life. It's something that brings joy, or at least brings you hope in dark times. And we just wanted to help push that sense out to the world a little bit more than it was at the time. And so again, when you find that it's reached certain people in certain corners, it means the world, because that's all we're really trying to do is reflect light from a much greater power than us in a way that it can brighten people's day, it can lift people up, and it can give clarity when needed. And that has been why we have made that decision for the last few years. As parents, we're trying to do the same thing for our kids, with or without music. We're trying to figure out how to teach them, how to lift them, how to correct them, how to help them do all the things that they need to do to be happy individuals who contribute meaningfully to the world around them. And I guess being in that headspace as a parent has definitely led into us wanting to care about making music that could do the same thing for people outside of our own homes. And so, who knows? Who knows what we'll do in the future, but that's been the right thing for us for the last few years.
Mm, I like that. Man, that's a great thought of how you guys see yourself. When it comes to, like, your guys' own success, how do you define that word?
Uh, it's just back to this picture, man. It really is. The relationships I have with my wife and with my kids, that defines my success. Truly, it's just, it's not a textbook answer. It's not some stock answer. That's just my answer. And to answer precisely about music, how do we define success? I think as long as we're making it and we're making it sincerely and we're having mutually uplifting experiences between us and those who care to listen, it's success. It's a huge success. To put a number on it in terms of streams or dollars made would be a huge disservice to what we're doing. And, that's like asking someone in their calling at church. You're like, well, how do you know if your calling's been a success? And you're saying, well, we didn't, I didn't make $1 million. I didn't reach 1 million people. So my calling must not have been successful. It's like, of course not. You don't know what conversations or lessons you've taught in your small little class of 4 youth that's going to inspire and lift somebody forever, you know? And so that's how we look at it. Every time we have new music come out, of course, we want to get it out there as much as possible, and we'll work hard to do that. But we will be happy with whatever reality ends up being if we've been sincere and we've had people sincerely receive it. So,
Mm, thank you. Yeah, we're coming up on time here. Ben, thank you so much for coming on and joining us and giving us a little piece inside your brain. Where can people find you? Where can they, support your music, stay connected with what you're going on? Is there any events that they can come attend? What's in the future for you guys right now?
yes. So please follow us on Truman Brothers on Instagram, at Truman Brothers on Instagram. We're also on TikTok. I think that one's Truman Brothers Music. And please follow us. We'll let you know when we have new music coming out, new events. We're going to be doing a Christmas show this December in Utah County. So be looking for that. We got new music we're working on. We got that Bruised with Ashley Hess coming out. And we got other projects in the works. So stay tuned. Just follow us. We'd love to connect and see you out there at some point.
There you go, folks. Find them on Instagram, TikTok. You can go stream their music. You got Bruised coming out. That'll be already out by the time this episode is, so we'll link it in our description that you can find below. But yeah, visit their website for their music. Go support them. These guys are awesome. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was good chatting, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.